In this episode, we're going to talk about how dogs learn without all the science stuff and put it in practical terms that you can understand.
Welcome to the Dog Guy Josh Show, a podcast about canine culture and lifestyle, hosted by Josh Pitts, a certified dog trainer.
Hello, I'm Josh. Thanks for tuning in. Humans and dogs essentially learn in the same ways, by association and consequence. Rather than boring you with all the science terms and technical definitions of classical and operant conditioning, I'd briefly like to share with you a framework. However, if you want to dive deeper and expand your knowledge behind the science of learning theory, I've included a list of suggested topics at the end of this podcast for you to explore. Association. We humans learn by association, just like our four-legged friends. When you meet someone for the first time, you come away with an association. Maybe it's positive, negative, or neutral. If you really enjoyed the interaction, you are likely to be happy to see that person again. If you found the person difficult or argumentative, you might get that little pit of dread in your stomach when you see that person. You have formed an association. You can think of an association as classical conditioning. Dogs experience the world this way too. Perhaps even more strongly than us humans do, because dogs lack the filter for rational thought. They are constantly forming associations. What's safe, what's dangerous, what's neutral, what's good for me, what's bad for me, what's neutral. These associations inform the decisions dogs make and the reactions they have to various situations and things in their environment. A common example of associative learning in dogs is their reaction to the sight of a food bowl or hearing the food being scooped. Dogs love that sight and sound. You've probably noticed your dog get excited when it's time to eat. This is because dogs have come to learn that these particular events predict mealtime. Food is tasty, so they love their bowls and hearing the food scooped or the bag rattle. In other words, dogs associate these events with eating. The amazing thing is that we can manipulate dogs' association to things. For example, new puppies generally find leashes inconsequential. When first shown a 6-foot length of nylon with a clip at the end, they have a neutral association to it. But find a way to make a dog associate anything with something they love, and you can teach them to love that too. How? Clip on the leash and give them treats or take them for a walk. Every time you leash them up, either take them for a walk or give them treats until you take the leash back off. Pretty soon the puppy figures out that the leash means fun, and bingo, you have a dog that loves leashes. The frightening thing, though, is that learning by association also works in reverse. You can teach a dog to hate or fear leashes by repeatedly using them to give corrections or by tying them up outside on their own. For us humans, these implications are huge. Everything you do around your dog influences the associations they make. Here's an important example. Say I am walking with my dog and I don't like the way they react to seeing another dog. Maybe they just bark in excitement, but I don't like it. I shout "no" and jerk the leash. This happens every time we see a dog. Pretty soon, my dog's reactions to other dogs is terrible. They bark and lunge and growl and snap because I have built a negative association with them. Dogs equal pain. In other words, I have taught my dog to dislike or fear other dogs. This is the main drawback of using punishment. It has unintended side effects. For example, it builds a negative association with the punisher, affecting the bond between the person and the dog. It is not that punishment doesn't work. It is that learning by association or emotion always comes along for the ride. What might I do instead if my dog growls and lunges when they see another dog? Reverse their negative association with other dogs. Treats are a good way to do this, but my dog might be too upset to take treats. If you put a spider right in front of a person with arachnophobia, they will have a hard time listening to the instructions to sit down and stop screaming. But keep the spider 20 feet away, only show it for short periods of time, and distract the phobic person with conversation or chocolate, and things will probably have a better outcome. The process is the same for dogs who are scared or upset by something. It is called desensitization and involves the 3 Ds, and you'll hear this a lot throughout my podcast when we talk about these. They are duration, distance, and distraction. We move the dog farther away from the upsetting object, try to keep the situation brief, and distract with cheerful voices and treats. Remember, we are not rewarding the dog for their ugly behavior display. They're too upset to control their behavior. We are trying to affect their emotional state so that they don't feel the need to act this way, and then we can ask them for a different behavior, like a sit. Consequence, also known as operant conditioning. You can tell a child that you will take them out for ice cream when you see them next to celebrate their good grades on their report card. When the child eats the ice cream, they understand they're being rewarded for the grades they got a week ago, and that they got those grades for the work they did over the course of several weeks or months. A dog can never understand this. It is beyond their ability to connect events over time. Dogs learn by consequence like we do, but for the dogs, the consequence has to be immediate, typically within 5 seconds. Let's say I wave my hand over my dog's head to get them into a sit position, then rummage around for a treat. By the time I deliver the treat 5 seconds later, the effectiveness can easily be lost. Maybe the dog sneezed, sniffed the ground, or looked the other way due to a distraction. Then suddenly, a treat finally appeared. As far as the dog is concerned, they got the treat for looking, sneezing, sniffing the ground. Eventually you will teach the dog to sit, but it can take a while. Or you might end up with a dog that sits and looks a different direction as a result. For us, this means that we need precision and immediacy to train dogs effectively. It helps us to avoid wasting time and making mistakes. We have to train ourselves to provide our dogs with immediate feedback, which lets them know right away when they have done something that we liked or didn't like. You can use verbal praise, treats, or other dog rewards such as throwing a ball or opening a door to let your dog outside. This is what's called a functional reward. So just to recap, dogs learn in 2 ways, by association or emotion, and by consequence or doing. Because of these 2 ways dogs learn, dogs see the world in 2 ways. What is safe, good for me, versus what is dangerous, bad for me, and what works versus what doesn't. The safe, dangerous outlook on life comes from learning by association. When a dog gets punished for peeing on the carpet in front of you, they don't learn inside outside. They learn that it is not safe to pee in front of you, but it is safe to pee when you are not there. The what works, what doesn't work outlook comes from learning by consequence. All dogs will try staring at their food container as a strategy to get it open. After time, they give up because it doesn't work. The container never opens or the bowl doesn't magically fill itself. They also try staring and barking at their people. Every once in a while, someone gives in and gives them attention, shares a bite of food, or takes them outside. Dogs learn that these strategies work, so they continue to do it. Dogs don't do things we dislike because they want to get back at us or to be stubborn or be naughty. This is a myth. To dogs, the world is either safe or dangerous, and things either work or they don't. Right or wrong never enters into it because dogs don't have the capacity for abstract thought. That's a human capability. Dogs do what's safe and what works. That's all. If a dog barks at you to throw the ball and you throw it, they will do it again. If you ignore the barking, they will eventually give up and try something else, maybe grab your shoes or get into other kinds of mischief. They're not trying to be obnoxious, they're just trying to do what works. If you ask a dog to sit and they don't, they're not being stubborn. You either just haven't trained them well enough yet, or you haven't made the sit rewarding enough yet. In other words, dogs are dogs, not people. Be patient with your dog and careful about what you pay attention to and what you ignore. Soon you will have a relaxed, content, and well-trained furry friend. By the time you're done with this podcast, you will know how to utilize these concepts and get more of the good behaviors that you like and less of the ones you don't. Self-study terms. Classical and operant conditioning are the basis for what's been discussed in this podcast thus far. I've also included some terms here in case you want to conduct further research on your own about learning theory. It's not required, nor will it help you succeed much more in listening to my podcasts, but some people love learning about learning itself, and they could help you train your dog more effectively in the future. Here they are. Classical conditioning, operant conditioning. And I have a post on both of those on my blog if you just search classical or operant conditioning on the search bar. Thorndike's law of effect. The Premack principle. Single event or perceptual learning. Orienting reflex. Desensitization. Habituation. Sensitization. Flooding. Learned irrelevance. Backchaining. Pattern training. That's it for this podcast. In the next podcast, we're going to talk about the 4 stages of learning. Have you ever asked your dog for a behavior that you think they know, but they didn't listen to you? It could be just because you haven't taught it correctly or practiced it enough, among several reasons that we'll discuss in that podcast. The purpose of the next podcast is to teach you how to train behaviors reliably from start to finish. In the remaining podcasts, after the 4 stages of learning, we'll talk about the 4 teaching techniques, how to structure your training sessions to get good results, how to motivate and reward your dog, and in the 6th podcast of this series, we'll also talk about 4 beginner exercises to get started. Thanks for listening to the Dog Guy Josh Show. Have a great day wherever you are in the world.
Thanks for listening to the Dog Guy Josh Show with Josh Pitts. Like what you just heard? Tell your friends about DogGuyJosh.com and join us next time.